You three whenever.
Mr. Tracy, I have 10 after 8. I don't really think we can wait much longer. Do you think this is it? I mean, are we all here? It would seem so, since there have been no new arrivals during the last half hour. You don't think, out of respect or something, we ought to wait a few more minutes?
Well, I don't mind waiting a little longer, if nobody else does, that is. Do you remember Greg? Last year at poor Bunny Atwater's memorial service? It was too grisly. 9 people turned up. 9! Of course they had the funeral on a Saturday afternoon after everyone had already left for Palm Springs, but even so, I mean, really...
My dear George, I can appreciate and respect your desire to make as good a showing attendance-wise as possible. However, I must point out that most of us have dinner engagements. I personally am giving a small party at LaRue in honor of... Okay, Irving, never mind the credits. We'll get started right away. I certainly don't want to keep anyone from dinner. No, I understand perfectly. You're absolutely right. We've waited long enough. I'm afraid I'm not very good at this sort of thing. As a matter of fact, I've always made it a point of avoiding. I mean, I haven't even been to a funeral since I was in high school, in 1936. The Latin teacher died and the whole class went, in a body, which seems sort of barbaric, really. Anyway, I want to thank all of you for coming out. I know that poor Charlie would have been... Well, I don't know if he would have been gratified by the size of the gathering, but he would have been pleased to know that those who loved him most in life have gathered here to honor him in death. Greg Morris, his trusted attorney. Irving, his devoted agent. Mr. Schreiber, his faithful taxman. And I know he would have been honored by the presence of the lovely Mrs. Salzman. Franny to all of us, who is here representing her husband, Mr. Harry Salzman, head of Charlie's studio.
Harry was all broken up about not being able to get here, but a lot of important exhibitors from Ohio are in meetings over the week, and...
I understand perfectly. When I got in from Europe yesterday to meet with Charlie's business advisors about the final settlement of his affairs, it was decided to hold a simple memorial service for him here at his house this afternoon. The plan was simply for some of his friends to meet, briefly, have a drink, and it was suggested that I speak a few words of farewell to our friend, and/or client, or whatever he was to each of us. This afternoon I sat for an hour or so at Charlie's typewriter, trying to compose a few suitable remarks. It was not an easy task. The rather ghastly circumstances of his actual demise make it, well, extremely difficult to think of anything to say about the poor son of a bitch. I beg your pardon.
I know how difficult this must be for you, and I certainly do excuse the French.
To borrow a phrase from Shakespeare, the evil that men do live after them. The good is often interred in their bones. I think that's right. Unfortunately, Charlie's library doesn't seem to include any Shakespeare, so I quote from memory. In any case, I decided this afternoon to mention only the good things about our departed friend. And to that end, I have compiled a list of, well, things to mention. First and foremost, of course, there was his still and now tragically never to be, fulfilled literary promise. I don't think any of us can forget his wonderful zest for life and good living. His superior knowledge of wines. I know that doesn't sound important, and I guess actually it isn't. And then, of course, there was that superb backhand. We all remember at one time or another seeing Charlie in action on the tennis courts. I remember in particular one afternoon there was, as a matter of fact, a $1,000 bet on the match. And Charlie and Segura beat... But as Charlie himself used to say, it's not who wins that counts, it's how much you win. Then, too, there was his fearlessness on the ski slopes. We all recall, at least by hearsay, his gallant attempt to set his own leg, which later, fortunately, turned out to be only a minor sprain, which in no way diminishes his... And finally, I should like to say a word about his value to the hostesses of the community, as an extra man. And that in itself, as I'm sure Franny here will be the first to tell you, is no small thing. The number of presentable, unattached, extra men, who are also available on relatively short notice, being rather limited to say the least. Oh, the hell with it. Charlie was Charlie, what else can I tell you? Some of us loved him, some of us hated him. Some of us loved and hated him both. Anyway, he's gone. And he went, to paraphrase Mr. Elliot, not with a whimper, but with a bang! Which, as I stopped to think about it, is a rather unfortunate way of putting it. Well, I guess that's it. I'm very sorry I wasn't more eloquent, but as I say, I'm not very good at this sort of thing. I think you did beautifully, dear boy. Very touching indeed. Very nice, George, seriously.
It really was. I hardly knew him at all, actually. I mean, as far as I was concerned, he was just somebody who worked for Harry. An employee, really. But one couldn't help running into him occasionally at parties and at the tennis club. And of course he was at Closter's last Christmas while we were there. As I say, I hardly knew him, but he always seemed so wonderfully vital and alive. Oh.
Now please, Franny, here, take my handkerchief. She's so emotional, overreacts to this sort of thing. You should have seen her, the way she carried on at poor Buddy Atwater's funeral. And she absolutely hated Bunny. You know you did, you said so a million.
Oh, Greg, will you just please shut up?
Okay, stop. Thank you. Okay, can I have you come in?